Hi guys, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome to my channel. So today we're going to be doing a Q&A about autism, and so as many of you know, or some of you don't know, International Autism Awareness was actually this past week, and I am a sister of two autistic boys, and I was like, getting my YouTube channel started or backup started and looking for things to do and wanted to make a conversation portion, and I was like, this is the perfect opportunity. So I got about 6 really good solid questions, and I wanted to give some really good thorough answers, and I hope that this educates some of you. I hope that it inspires some of you. I hope it warms your heart. I hope you can relate to it. I hope that it answers your questions, those of you who submitted questions. Thank you so very much. And I hope it provokes more questions. This is like kind of based on my experience growing up, my kind of basic research, and how I feel about the topic. And please, I'm like inviting and opening the door for everyone to do the same. Well, let's get started. Oh, by the way, I am going to be using my handy dandy computer notepad here, so I wrote down the questions, and my answer is just to keep me on track so I don't like go off topic, okay? Because I like to derail a lot. Question number 1. What is it like having 2 brothers that have autism? My mother taught autistic children for a long time, and I used to help her during the summertime, but it's not the same. Well, first of all, thank you for the curiosity, because it is a story having autistic siblings, okay? Second of all, that's wonderful that your mother taught autistic children. My mother also taught autistic children early on when I was younger as well. And that's great that you were able to help her during the summertime and get some exposure. So I have 2 brothers. I have Ricky, who is 18 right now, and I have Jasmine, who is turning 18 this month now. I'm 21, so I'm the oldest. They're my baby brothers. They are developmentally delayed. They're physically fine, developing great, but mentally they are delayed. They're at the stage of like a newborn baby or a small toddler. They are also epileptic, so they have seizures, but it's under control now. They're taking the correct medicine. They are low functioning, which means they need 24/7 watch. Public places, it's kind of hard. They wouldn't be able to like go out to be in a classroom by themselves, like a higher level classroom. They wouldn't be able to go to movies by themselves, like going out in public affairs, like it's harder. So they're lower functioning. They need a 24/7 watch. They're nonverbal, they're non-potty trained. They have no sense of danger really for the most part. They do have behavioral issues and can get pretty aggressive and physically harmful. And and that's not uncommon for that to be the norm. And there's a big stigma around autistic individuals about, oh, I'm scared of them because they could hurt me. Some kind of like Frankenstein fear of autistic individuals. And to me, it never made sense because rationalize it, especially like nonverbal or verbal, it doesn't matter. They're having a hard time communicating for the most part. And think about it, if you're trying to communicate something with someone and you can't do it or it's not getting through, don't you eventually end up getting frustrated? Like you get frustrated, right? And now because we're developed adults or teens or even as children, like we're developing at a faster rate, we're able to emotionally rationalize. I'm frustrated, but I know what's right and wrong. I know how to handle this frustration. Of course, kids not so much, because kids, they lash out a lot too. They have aggressive temper tantrums, right? But then you start to get into 11, 12, into your teens, and you start to learn how to deal with those frustrations, right? Your brain is never developing, never getting those experiences and never taking those steps, then you don't know how to deal with that frustration. All you feel is frustration. And like a little kid, what is going to be the first thing you do when you're frustrated? You're going to physically lash out because your body has nowhere to put that frustration except like out. So I'm now going to talk specifically about my brothers. I had to remember and have to remember when they lash out, because listen, I've been punched, slapped, oh my god, I've been slapped, bitten, things thrown at me, like hit, like all of it. And my mother's got even worse. Like, God bless her, because my mother has gotten some physical blows. But what we have to remember is that they're not trying to beat us up. They're not trying to get revenge on us. They're not, you know what I mean? Like, nothing of that sort. They're trying to communicate something. We have to find ways to break them, pull them out of that physical trance of frustration, so they can understand, I'm like, we're here, I'm listening to you. You know, I'm here for you. There's something my mom does that I think is a perfect example of that. When Ricky, he like hits, when new people come in or like there's a change in his environment or something, he'll hit. He'll let you know he's hitting too, because he'll be like, I'm gonna hit you. And my mom will take his hand and go, soft touches. That'll kind of get him to understand, okay, like I'm being listened to, let me calm down for a second. That's where that aggression comes from a lot of times. They're not trying to hurt you, and they're not out to get you. They're trying to simply communicate in a body that they feel trapped in. My mother is the only active parent in the picture. And so at a very young age, I took on a big part of the role of second parent. So that made our life very exclusive and full of labor. We never had guests over the house, really. Having friends over was a foreign concept. Well, it was hard for my mom to take me and pick me up from events, hangouts, shows, etc. Because, you know, she'd have to get the boys dressed, get them in the car all by herself, disrupt their routine. Like, it's a whole big deal. Like, and they need to be in bed and etc. It's literally caring for babies and toddlers. Family trips weren't really in our book. I mean, like, together the furthest we went was like the park with a pizza, until it just became too difficult for us to not turn into a clown show. People love, excuse my language, but people love to watch and stare every time we wanted to go anywhere. It was infuriating to me. My mother had more patience with it, but I could not stand it. It was hard because just any kind of disruptance in a boy's routine, it just was like a ticking time bomb. I didn't have the childhood nor teen years that most regular children had. I was upset then. I will admit it. It was hard, and a lot of times I didn't understand why I had the cards that I dealt with. But I am so grateful now. I wouldn't be the type of human that I am today without their presence in my life. You know, I'm lucky to experience that day in and day out. I wrote down once that having an autistic sibling is like, it feels like there's always a mess to clean up behind you. But I can never really get upset because every time I turn around to the mess, there's always this bundle of joy that's sitting right in the middle of the mess. And that's usually my brothers. Growing up with them was messy, is messy. I won't front, but that's the blessing. That's the fun part. That's the good part. That's the interesting part. That's the part that will always first and foremost tell people about myself. I'm a sister to 2 autistic brothers, and life was crazy. Want to hear about it? They truly taught me more about life and how to be the best human that I can be, more than anyone or anyone in the world or anything in the world could ever have taught me. Question number 2. How young can autism be diagnosed? By the way, these answers, the ones that aren't like personal anecdotes, the resources that I got these answers from and got some basic research from are down below in the bio. Diagnosing autism, it's difficult because there's no medical test, like there's not a blood test. The doctor has to look at the child's developmental history and behavior in order to make a diagnosis. So it's a lot of watching behavior and seeing how they're progressing in that way. There's no actual measure to diagnose if someone has autism, which makes it hard. We don't know, why they have it. There's not really a history in my family, but there's not really answers. Sometimes it can be detected at 18 months or younger, but usually by age 2, a professional can tell whether they're on the spectrum or not. That was around the time that both brothers started showing symptoms around the toddler ages. However, many children don't receive a final diagnosis until much older, especially if they're on the higher functioning level. Some people are not diagnosed until they're actual adults either. So it's not always just finding out when you're a kid. Some traits or symptoms that we might see in autism is avoiding eye contact, having little interest in other children or people, a lot of solo time, limited display of language. So they're not talking as much, they're not as verbal, or they're not using the level of language that they should be, having a harder time communicating with other people, and then getting upset by minor changes in routine. And this is a big one. This is a big one with my brothers. Anytime there's any little break in routine, it's like, whoa, like the world has ended, and it's because that consistency, and they get used to something, and it's a sense of comfort almost, and when you break that, it's like they're in disarray. Question number 3. All right, could you talk about any similarities with ADHD? I am always finding stuff that I do mirroring some of my friends with autism, but then also lots of differences. Great question. I'm gonna tread lightly with my answer here and let you know that I am no professional. I am only going off of my research that I've done and then kind of adding my tidbits of what I've seen in my own experience with autism. So first off, people with ADHD, they show a persistent pattern of inattention or hyperactivity, impulsivity, oh, I butchered that, that interferes with functioning or development. Most people with ADHD have problems that fall into both of these categories, but is not always the case. The 2 categories being inattentiveness or hyperactivity and impulsiveness. And so some main signs of inattentiveness are having a short attention span, being easily distracted, being unable to stick to tasks that are tedious or time consuming, constantly changing activities or tasks. The main signs of hyperactivity and impulsiveness are being unable to sit still, especially in calm or quiet surroundings, excessive physical movement, excessive talking. I know that probably just only like barely scratches the surface of ADHD, but I wanted to pinpoint the kind of things that do mirror autism. The attention span and being easily distracted is a huge thing in autism. It's a sensory thing I've come to find out, specifically with my brothers, is that there's so much sensory things going on that it's hard to get them to focus on just one thing. If we are trying to read a book and there's a car going by, or there's someone closing their bedroom door or the TV's on, there is no way they're going to sit there and fully pay attention to this book, because like all that sensory stuff going on in the environment is like firing rapidly, and they're like, I want to know what's going on everywhere. That's the inattentiveness. That's the kind of link I see with the inattentiveness. The hyperactivity and impulsiveness, oh my god, this one is the home hitter. Being unable to sit still and excessive physical movement. Here's some telltale things that my brothers do. This, and you're gonna see a lot of autistic individuals. They're gonna do this, they're gonna rock back and forth, you know, when we're in the car. So this is the car seat, we're in the car, they're like hitting against the car like that. My brother's always biting his arm. They're jumping. Oh, they're jumping all the time. Left, right. You think they like Zumba, man. They are running around all the time. Like, what gets them to sit still is when, I don't like it, but they're on their medicine, and kind of gets them dazed out. And then they're sitting there, still. Even when they're sitting still, they could be on the couch and they'll be just like this. It's even the slightest movement, it doesn't have to be a big movement. They just can't stop moving. There's always something going on. Of course, there's like a lot of differences, between the two. But I think it's cooler to find the similarities and focus on the similarities, because that's how we can kind of connect each other and relate. And I think that was a great thing that you have autistic friends, and you're able to relate in that way. And I hope that you guys keep digging and exploring that, because that's really cool.